Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The big question we are asking today is whether Pakistan and China are trying to use Bangladesh to target India and create a new pressure point for New Delhi in its eastern and northeastern frontier. Is the ouster of the India-friendly Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh a loss to India and a gain for China and its all-weather ally Pakistan? Or is it too simplistic to assume that New Delhi's possible loss is China's gain? If one is asking these questions, it is because Bangladesh's unelected interim leader Mohammad Yunus is cozying up to China and is prepared to forgive Pakistan despite the Pakistani army carrying out a genocide of Bengalis during the Liberation War in 1979, killing up to 2 million people and raping and maiming up to 300,000 others. Mohammad Yunus goes to China and educates the Chinese, saying India's northeast, comprising 8 states, is landlocked, and therefore Bangladesh is the sole guardian of the ocean in the area. Yunus then invites the Chinese to come and expand its economy in Bangladesh territory along east and northeast India. Thereafter, Mohammad Yunus tells the visiting deputy speaker of the Nepalese parliament that Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan and Northeast Indian states together can work wonders with an integrated economic strategy. By saying so, the unelected interim leader of Bangladesh has sought to look at Northeast India as some kind of an independent entity. And right after assuming charge in August last year, the Yunus regime had invited the Pakistani army to come and train Bangladeshi soldiers. Yes, viewers, the same Pakistani army involved in the 1971 genocide of Bangladeshis. To understand what's going on, I have an esteemed panel of experts today. Joining me is Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. With me from Singapore is Dr. Ivan Lidarev, an Asian security expert, visiting research fellow at the Institute of South Asian Studies in Singapore. Joining me from New Delhi is Lieutenant General Rana Pratap Kalita, former GOC-in-C of the Army's Eastern Command. Also joining me is Dr. Swaran Singh, professor at the Jawaharlal Nehru University and one of the best known experts on China. And with me as well is Mr. Sourabh Sen, a well-known global affairs specialist. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the discussion. Let me first go to you, Ambassador. You are somewhere in Rajasthan, if I am not mistaken. You are at a remote location. In case I lose you, let me ask you the first question. What's going on, Ambassador? Do you think Bangladesh and its interim leader, Mohammad Yunus, is acting on his own, making these provocative statements, or do you think he is acting under some kind of external pressure?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm actually in Uttarakhand, in a very rainy and cold place. I think, it's very difficult to make sense of what Professor Yunus is actually doing. Because he is clearly, the reason why he's there was to conduct a smooth, free, fair, inclusive election. He's been up to doing a lot of things except that. He has not announced a date of election. He's an unelected person. There is no ideology that runs behind this government. This government is not a political government. It is not elected. It does not have to go back to get elected. So he is doing things which I think are not in Bangladesh, what is in their best interest. But look at the repeated provocation. Absolutely sure to be seen as hostile by India. The statements that you mentioned about the Northeast, constantly referring to Northeast as landlocked, as if Northeast is not a part of India. Northeast very much has access to seas. It has access to all the seaports that India has. Connectivity is definitely a very important aspect of what we have been doing with Bangladesh, and we know that connectivity with Northeast is something which is a win-win for everybody. But that does not mean that you invite Chinese to participate in this project, and so that is what Professor Yunus has been up to. You would have also noticed that recently Bangladesh has given sort of in principle approval to a humanitarian corridor to Myanmar.
Yes.
Now the details are very vague on this. Now this is a move by Bangladesh which is not really something which has not been discussed between the political parties. It has been criticized. Whether interim government such as this can take such a important step. The Americans are supposed to be behind this, and the UN, of course, when Secretary General visited, he spoke about this. So this humanitarian between these various steps that Professor Yunus is taking and appointing a national security advisor who is an American national. So very, it is clearly that the government is, not really, I get a sense that, it is falling under various kinds of pressure, and it is doing things under pressure. And time will tell how long this can last. And certainly Pakistan and China are big players now in Bangladesh. Of course, the Pakistani ambassador seems to have been recalled recently, and the statement that was made by the Prime Minister after the India-Pakistan ceasefire on we've taught them a lesson. We've taught Bangladesh a lesson. So this has also confused, I think, Bangladeshis, because why did the Pakistanis bring in 71 war suddenly in what is clearly a completely different issue?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of things are going on, and to make sense is extremely difficult at this point. But clearly, Yunus is under some sort of pressure and does not understand that this path with India is not going to be good for Bangladesh at all.
Absolutely, Ambassador. I will come back to you, and I hope I don't lose the line to you, because you are very important in this discussion. Let me go to Sourabh is also there. I don't know whether Ivan has joined me. I'll ask my producers to let me know whether Ivan has joined me. I can't hear the producers. Okay. Dr. Swaran Singh, China, do you think China and Pakistan are exerting some kind of pressure on Bangladesh? Because this kind of statements, as Ambassador Riva Ganguly said, is absolutely extremely provocative as far as India is concerned. Now, do you think that the ouster of the friendly government of Sheikh Hasina, do you think it is China's gain, or India's loss, or do you think it is too simplistic an assessment?
Very clearly, if you look at China's game plan for India's neighborhood in South Asia, Sheikh Hasina stood as a very strong leader, which had a very good relationship with India, particularly with Prime Minister Modi. And her exit definitely created excitement in terms of exploring opportunities for Beijing, and of course also for Islamabad, that looks at all opportunities to, see how they can browbeat India if they can, which is of course not possible. Now, scenario is very interesting. Sheikh Hasina Wajid has not resigned. She has not been impeached or has not vacated the post of Prime Minister under any constitutional provisions that we have. Second, Yunus is there as an interim chief advisor. Note, he's a chief advisor, which means he has to only have a simple duty of reviving the new government through proper elections following the people's mandate as soon as possible, and also stay apolitical. Now, he's neither apolitical nor he's trying to do elections as soon as possible, which means there are two things that are possible. One, either in the fervor of nationalism, or let me say in favor of radicalization of Islamist forces, he's either propitiating them or has become a puppet of theirs, which means he is beginning to do things which, constitutionally he's not expected to do. And therefore, the whole radical transformation of relationship with Pakistan is something which is very, it's a very policy decision, and he's not having any mandate to take such transformative decisions as to how to change relationship with Pakistan that you mentioned had caused atrocities, and same is China. He is not supposed to make those offers and do those things. And we are hearing that in March this year, there were some visits. There's a talk of Lal Monorihat air base that the Chinese are showing some interest and so on. So it's a very strange situation where I think the only outcome should be elections as soon as possible. Let the new leader come and take decisions.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, both China and Pakistan will continue to explore opportunities to sort of make sure that they can have a deeper relationship, entrench themselves, taking advantage of uncertainty, weak politics of Yunus, and of course the radical forces that are there.
Right. The limited mandate, Sourabh Sen, the limited mandate of Mohammad Yunus when he was installed in power 3 days after Sheikh Hasina's exit on the 5th of August last year was to stabilize the country and hold elections. But now, as Ambassador Ganguly very rightly said, Mohammad Yunus is not talking about holding elections at all. He wants to prolong. That's very clear from his statement. Now, my question to you is not that. My question to you, Sourabh Sen, do you think Pakistan and China are leveraging Bangladesh's political and economic vulnerabilities, to create a new geopolitical pressure point for India in East and Northeast? And now, after Operation Sindoor, when Pakistan is at the back foot and its greatest ally, that is China, has also, faced egg on its face, do you think this is going to only intensify?
Thank you, Wasbir, for having me today. If you allow me, I would step back a couple of months more when Professor Yunus had come up with a statement of resetting the ties. Now, resetting the ties between India and Bangladesh is not like resetting a computer. These ties are very deep, very strong, and very layered. Now, resetting the ties, obviously not Professor Yunus's mandate. He's an unelected caretaker government. So he's taking decisions like greater engagement with the Chinese, or this, as Ambassador had mentioned, the humanitarian corridor. Now, these are initiatives which, even if after his government, the new government with popular mandate will have very difficult choices to make, whether continue with them or whether modify them. Once these corridors and newer terms of engagement are established, then the new government will find it very difficult to kind of find an alternative. So these mandates are going to stay until they are reversed. Now, on the humanitarian corridor, our ground reports suggest that it was done under the pressure of the Americans so that this corridor can be used by the local groups like Arakan Army to supply arms into Myanmar, and all these things we are hearing all those things. To be very frank, this pro-Chinese tilt in Bangladesh started even before the elections, where the Awami League, which we knew as the Awami League of 1971, had completely changed, with key positions being held by pro-Chinese leaders and businessmen. So the Chinese have evinced a very keen interest in inserting themselves into the South Asian politics, and they are using these developments obviously to...
Okay, we'll come back, Sourabh Sen. The situation in Bangladesh, perhaps the Chinese are trying to exploit, and so are the Pakistanis, perhaps, because the first thing that the Mohammad Yunus regime did after taking over in August last year was to invite the Pakistani army to come and train the Bangladeshi soldiers. We'll go into all of that. At this point, let me welcome Dr. Ivan Lidarev, visiting research fellow at the Institute of South Asian Studies in Singapore, and he's a well-known Asian security expert. Ivan, welcome to this broadcast. You wrote a very interesting commentary. I was reading, you said that India's loss of the friendly government in Bangladesh, that of Sheikh Hasina, may not necessarily be a gain for China. And whereas, there is a lot of concern at Bangladesh causing up to China, going to China and saying that Northeast India is landlocked, so you come and expand your economy along Northeast Indian borders and so on and so forth. That has caused some kind of a concern in India. And India responded by withdrawing the transshipment facility given to Bangladesh to export its goods to third countries. Now, how do you look at it? How do you look at the situation?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show. I think that Bangladesh right now is trying deliberately to provoke India. I think that the Bangladeshi government is deliberately behaving in provocative ways, and it tries to bring China in order to gain leverage on India. To some extent for domestic consumption, to mobilize Bangladeshi society behind a very increasingly beleaguered government which has serious domestic problems, but also in order to prevent India from retaliating against these provocations. However, I'm a bit skeptical that China is going to capitalize so enormously on this situation because China is very much uncertain about the future of Bangladesh, what the next government will be like, what the economy will be like. So there is a certain caution in the Chinese approach. That's why I think that while China certainly will gain from what is happening now and it will improve its situation in Bangladesh, I don't think necessarily it is going to take over Bangladesh or establish a very firm dominant position in Bangladesh.
Right. Let me bring in once again Ambassador Riva Ganguly. Ambassador, you know the situation. You have served there. You know the situation. Now, how much is Bangladesh, Muhammad Yunus's internal compulsions? Because he is backed by the fundamentalists, he is backed by the Islamists, now he's been compelled to ban the Awami League, which has been ruling the country for so long, and that does not mean that the road is clear for the other party, that is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. So things are extremely volatile in Bangladesh, and here is a man who is unelected and he wants to hold on to power.
Right now, because the rightist elements, the Islamic parties, the Islamic Andolon, Hifazat-e-Islam, Jamaat-e-Islami, all of them have gained a lot of ground. It is believed that the students' wing of the Jamaat, which is known as Chhatru Shibir, a lot of their cadre students are now in the newly formed party, the NCP. The NCP is a party which, frankly speaking, till now has shown no ideology. It has not expressed its views on either the economy or the future of Bangladesh or its worldview in terms of its relationship with its most important neighbor, India. But it has only had a one-point agenda, which is banning the Awami League. Now, which has been done, and under very curious circumstances, which, there was a movement, there was a protest in front of, in a place where protests are normally not allowed. And clearly the protest was supported by the government because on a hot day, water spray was put on these people so that they didn't feel the heat.
I think
now all this makes people believe that people are now
we have a bad
that
Ambassador. We have a poor audio. We have a poor audio with the ambassador. I think we'll have her on the phone if that is all right. We will, Ambassador. We'll have to go. We'll have to cut you short. We'll have a quick 30-second break and we'll come back. And I'll go to Swaran Singh. I'll bring Ivan Lidarev once again, and I'll also go to Sourabh Sen there. Thank you. Don't go away. I'll be back. I'll go to Dr. Swaran Singh, and I have the same question actually for Dr. Swaran Singh and Dr. Ivan Lidarev actually. First, I'll go to Dr. Swaran Singh. Dr. Swaran Singh, you see, after Operation Sindoor, of the latest last 1 week of big developments between India and Pakistan, do you think where a lot of question mark has been raised on the Pakistani air defense system, the quality of Pakistani weapons vis-a-vis India's, because whereas the Pakistani side has not been able to demonstrate any proof, whereas the Indian side has given a lot of demonstrative proof actually about their reverses that they have inflicted on Pakistani side. Now my question is, after this latest situation, do you think China will be more interested in consolidating its hold or consolidating its position in Bangladesh, giving Bangladesh lot of loans, making it a debt economy and consolidating its grip, and idea being to put additional pressure on India on the eastern flank? Do you think that is more likely now? And here is a willing leader, unelected, willing to accept what the Pakistanis are saying and what the Chinese are saying.
Between China and India, other than very often we have noticed forward deployments, eyeball to eyeball, soldiers facing each other for a long period of time, these two countries also showcase their power in terms of local geopolitics and how they influence local geopolitics. So in that sense, yes, both the way India stood up to China in Himalayas for last 4.5 years, and now particularly Operation Sindoor really leaves a very strong message to China, which apparently is a very strong competitor, not just in terms of territorial dispute, but also in terms of larger Eurasian geopolitics and how these two countries are seen as growing powers in the region. So India's standing up to China, followed by Operation Sindoor, has really delivered message to both Pakistan and China, and therefore there is a certain level of, shall we say, even desperation to make sure that they not only work together in tandem with each other, but also try to gain as much as possible their foothold in other regional countries in that sense. And Dhaka, which was a great friend of India, which was seen as a model of economic development for South Asia, which was seen as a state with political stability, is now suddenly so vulnerable that Chinese and both Pakistani leaders think they can go and do certain kind of arm twisting or influencing and building trenches for themselves in that country, which is happening without doubt. And what is interesting, I keep saying, is Dr. Yunus is not supposed to be there other than simply facilitating holding early elections. But apparently he has his own ambitions and he's trying to ensure that he's trying to delay elections as much as possible, which is creating further confusion on the ground, whether the BNP is going to come back to power or, sort of Islamic forces, Jamaat-e-Islami-led forces are going to come to power. They have already banned Awami League. It creates much more chaos on the ground, and chaos suits both China and Pakistan because that makes a country called Bangladesh much more vulnerable to them. And I think in that sense, India showcasing, other than power projections that we do on Republic Day or in terms of military exercises, use of armed forces leaves sort of impression for a long time to come as to how did Indian Army, how did Indian Air Force and Navy conduct themselves when push came to shove. And that is leaving a very strong message to these two neighbors, and therefore they are, I'm saying in desperation, trying to come closer, work together and seek as much influence as possible. And in that sense, in South Asia, Dhaka was the strongest pillar of India's support in that sense, with least influence of China or Pakistan till Sheikh Hasina was in command there. And now that seems to be creating an unusual attraction for both China and Pakistan, who are trying to engage and assuage Mohammed Yunus as much as possible.
Right.
And building partnership in them in that sense is an effort on on Dr. Mohammed Yunus's part to seek legitimacy outside, not just inside Bangladesh, but seek legitimacy outside in other regional players endorsing and welcoming him and so on. But his mandate is not to do that, I keep
Absolutely,
saying.
absolutely. Let me bring in, I'm coming to you, Sourabh, in a minute. Let me bring in Dr. Lidarev here, Dr. Ivan Lidarev. Ivan, how do you look at it? The same question. Do you think the Operation Sindoor and a question mark on Chinese weapons, the way India could inflict the damages to the Pakistani air assets, do you think after that China will be more interested, and including Pakistan, to do something to consolidate their ties with Bangladesh, to create open a new front for India in its eastern flanks?
There is definitely a very powerful strategic logic for the expansion of Pakistani and Chinese influence in Bangladesh. Because think about it, India now faces essentially a two-front dilemma. It has one front with Pakistan and one with China. And imagine if a third front is being added. So obviously this will substantially weaken Indian position. The big question is not so much whether they want to do this, but whether they can do it. I think that at this point, the Chinese don't want to overtly securitize their presence in Bangladesh because they fear Indian reaction, especially because now they're trying to improve relations with India, to some extent because of the trade war with the United States, because also of the last 5 years. Essentially, they saw how bad things can go if they really antagonize India after 2020. So I think that they're trying to tone down things. However, I think that they hope to use Pakistan and expand Pakistani influence in Bangladesh, and in this sense find a backdoor to expand their own presence there. And you can see this very clearly with Pakistani officers training Bangladeshi troops. You can see this also with the likely increase of Pakistani military and intelligence presence in Bangladesh. You can see it even in things like the potential acquisition by the Bangladeshi Air Force of Chinese Pakistani aircraft, such as JF-17 Thunder, which would be very much a game changer for Bangladesh. So yes, there is definitely such a desire, and I believe that over time it's going to increase. However, in the coming 1 or 2 years, I think that China will be a little bit more cautious, especially because they don't know what the next government of Bangladesh will be like. And also they don't know whether Bangladesh will be able to withstand India's reaction, because one of the big messages of Sindoor, and generally speaking of India's kind of more decisive foreign and security policy, is that India is not anymore willing to put up with provocations. So in a certain sense, Dhaka will need to consider India's reaction very carefully if it wants really to go down this path.
Absolutely. Dr. Lidarev, you talked about Bangladesh acquiring some few Chinese aircraft, but for the record, Bangladesh has also acquired at least 2 Chinese submarines, and the Chinese are supposed to set up a submarine base near Cox's Bazar. So now these are developments. I'll have to go for a break, but before that, very quickly, Sourabh Sen, as the ambassador Riva Ganguly was saying, and everyone else is saying, that Dr. Muhammad Yunus's mandate was to stabilize the country and hold elections as soon as possible. But Muhammad Yunus doesn't seem to be interested in that. But do you think, he would have created enough changes in the equations in South Asia by the time an elected government comes in place? Because now saner elements in both the countries are saying that, okay, we have to treat cautiously because this is an unelected government, a new government may come and everything may be hunky-dory, things might change. But now that he has banned the Awami League, I think Muhammad Yunus wants to make sure that the Awami League does not come back to power. One of their former presidents have fled the country to Thailand. All kinds of things are happening. Sourabh.
See, banning Awami League is a two-edged sword. What you are pointing out is absolutely right, that Professor Yunus's mandate was to stabilize the country. We are seeing no evidence of any kind of stabilization. So there is still a lot of command and control issues, not only with the forces, but also in the political sphere. Can anyone name a second person who has a pan-Bangla presence other than Muhammad Yunus? that will point out the nature of the completely fractured politics. Now, dealing with the fractured politics is a major problem. You have so many leaders locally powerful, but who are not powerful enough to kind of crystallize the opposition. Under such a circumstances, such banning something like Awami League will only make things much more fuzzy and get things out of control. The other I mentioned, it was a double-edged sword. The other side of the sword will be banning Awami League may also create martyr out of Awami League. The overground workers can be pushed underground. They can kind of galvanize under a different name, under different kind of forces. Now, these decisions are completely out in the open, and it creates a lot of dissonance in the system, which nobody knows how it's going to pan out in the near future. Thank you.
Right. Before I'll go for a break, but very quickly, Ambassador Ganguly, what should be India's approach now? Because there has been no contact as such that we know of, at least in the public domain. What should be India's approach? Should we ignore Mohammad Yunus and wait for an elected government, or do you think that will be too late?
I think, we have to wait and see when Yunus announces elections, when a new elected government comes to power. Because, this government clearly, it's unelected. It doesn't have any really political worldview. In a sense, it also lacks legitimacy in taking very long-term and important decisions. So I think the only thing India can do is to wait and watch what's going on. And I think because it's a very substantive relationship, there is a large border, there are many things which need to be tied up between India and Bangladesh. The official level contacts are going on, to my understanding. And, some of the mechanisms are working, but to keep the relationship going. We shouldn't expect anything important to be happening with this particular government, at least for the present.
Right. I'll go for a short break. Don't go away. I'll be right back, and I'll go to my panelists discussing whether Pakistan and China are in tango with Dhaka. Dr. Swaran Singh, as Ivan was saying that, the Chinese are trying to improve relations with India. They said that, we should resume the direct flights. And the Consul General in Kolkata gave an interview recently. We said that there should be more visas, visa restrictions should be lifted, so on and so forth. We should improve ties, so on and so forth. Now, in this kind of a situation, when there is a trade war going, when most of the companies are saying that they are going to shift to India, that is a different story. Do you think Pakistan will be used as a proxy by China? Is that also likely now?
China has always seen Pakistan as a very unusual partner, which is an Islamic state, which is ruled by military more often, but still a very close partner of a communist power, which is an atheist state in that sense. So it's a very unusual combination that they have had. And only good explanation for their sustained, very close relationship, deeper than oceans and higher than mountains, as Pakistanis often like to celebrate it, is their obsession with India. So that has always been the reason why these two unusual bedfellows have been able to survive together for such long period of time. And now in a situation where they have seen India's prowess, which worries them, I'm sure, and that brings them further closer. And in that context, Bangladesh becomes an opportunity where they want to really revive that relationship with some Islamic forces in Bangladesh, which will see Pakistan as is a sort of blood brother for them, and China has advantage of deep pockets and wants to invest and provide military supplies. in that sense, it's a cocktail of very unusual circumstances. But we are only hoping that once elections take place and a more stable government comes to power in Bangladesh, they will soon begin to decipher that how their survival, their success, their development depends on a positive developmental relationship with India. And India is not only interested in sort of building a strategic commercial partnership, it's a very strong people to people partnership, partnership of history, of culture, and so on. And in that sense, any elected leader in Bangladesh that has to answer to the electorate will know that the focus has to be on development. And development cannot come unless a very strong partnership with India is revived. And I think that is why I keep saying that Dr. Yunus must, as soon as possible, hold elections, bring an elected government with a mandate to take decisions and step aside. But there is an obvious temptation that he wants to prolong his stay as chief advisor to Bangladesh. And apparently, there are no strong reasons now that he could potentially be a candidate to either contest election or get elected, because there are strong other contenders in the field. So, in that sense, his vulnerabilities, his personal weaknesses to stay in power are giving opportunities to Pakistan and China, who always wanted to make sure they come together and build, even stronger entrenchments in other neighboring countries of India. And to me, this is definitely impacting how India will organize its security, and particularly the kind of triggers that have come to guide China-Pakistan relationship in Bangladesh post Operation Sindoor. But as soon as elections take place in Bangladesh, the leader will have to look long term. Will leaders have to look at development, and I'm sure some kind of course correction is bound to take place as soon as elections are held and a new leader comes in Bangladesh.
Right. I'd welcome Lieutenant General Rana Pratap Kalita, former Eastern Army commander, just joined me from New Delhi. General, welcome. Before I come to you, let me ask a question to Dr. Ivan Lidarev. Dr. Ivan, you see, you are one of the few persons who do not think that China will be able to immensely benefit after the benefit with the loss, if I may use the word, of a friendly government in Dhaka. Now my question is, when the Bangladeshis invites the Chinese to set up an airbase at Lal Monir Hat, that's the name of the place, which is extremely close, about 160 kilometers from the narrow Siliguri corridor, with what we call the chicken snake, that is the land corridor connecting northeastern India with the Indian mainland. And this airbase, if the Chinese agrees to build, this is an old abandoned Second World War airbase. Now that definitely raises concerns on the Indian side. Now my question is, does it reflect a broader Chinese strategy of its string of pearls encircling India, so on and so forth? Or do you think the Chinese will not come this far as trying to build an airport at this juncture, when it is hit by the trade war and when it is trying to improve some kind of improvement in relations with India?
Well, first, China has always tried to build facilities around India. So this is not a new thing. It has been going on for decades, more than 20 years. Of course, I think that China will benefit from the present situation, but I don't think that it will fundamentally come to dominate Bangladesh. So there will be limits to the benefit it makes. I don't also believe that the Chinese are going to deploy PLA Air Force squadrons on this airport. Maybe they will help the Bangladeshis develop the airport, which of course comes with certain intelligence advantages, no doubt about this. But I don't think that they will dare to deploy troops or use it in any military sense, because this will be extremely antagonistic. And also we should always bear in mind that everything that is happening with Bangladesh and Bangladeshi policy right now is completely transitory. It's interim, just as the government which now governs Bangladesh, which is, as was rightly pointed out, unelected and has a very big legitimacy problem. So in a certain sense, everything is in a temporary interim state who knows next year whether the next Bangladeshi government will decide to keep the air base, especially because Bangladesh clearly has huge financial difficulties. As Professor Singh very rightly pointed out, if Bangladesh hopes to develop, inevitably it will have to make a course correction and improve relations with India. There is no other way. And by the way, if they try to get too close with China militarily, I am sure that they'll get in a lot of trouble, both with the US and with the IMF. And I just don't think that they can afford any quarrel with the IMF. I mean, China offered them, in theory, $2 billion US dollars. The IMF is offering them 5, and probably they'll need dramatically more in the future.
That is a point also that needs to be taken into account. That's what Ivan has said. The reaction or possible reaction from the United States and lenders like the International Monetary Fund, or for that matter the World Bank. Let me bring the general in, General Rana Prasad Kalita. Until recently, the Eastern Army Commander. General, we also have Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das, former Indian High Commissioner in Bangladesh, on the phone line because he is at a very remote location where her internet connectivity. Ambassador, can you hear us? Ambassador, can you hear us? Okay. General Kalita, now you see we have been talking a lot in the last few days on this program about this Operation Sindoor. Now, post-Operation Sindoor scenario, do you think the Chinese having tested some kind of reverses because their weapon system could not defend the Pakistani airspace and their missiles were brought down by homegrown, some of the homegrown Indian missiles. In this kind of a post-Operation Sindoor scenario, General, do you think the Pakistanis and the Chinese will be trying to take a grip on Bangladesh to open a new front in the eastern flank of India?
You see, that effort has already been going on since the change of government in Bangladesh, which took place last year. So thereafter, we have seen a flurry of activities. Chinese efforts, in any case, had been going on for building up infrastructure, even during Sheikh Hasina's, while Sheikh Hasina's government was in power. So, but after the changeover of the government, we have seen increased effort by Pakistan. We have seen particularly of Pakistan Army, after 1971, this is the first time the Pakistan Army high-level delegation came and visited Bangladesh, including the chief of ISI. And they have visited Rangpur division, which borders the vulnerable Siliguri corridor. We all understand what could be the issue points of discussion, because after the change of government, another main thing which you have seen in Bangladesh is rise of the fundamental forces, which has also led to release of some of the terrorist leaders of Huji and the Ansarul Bangla team and all this. So definitely there is an effort renewed effort to cultivate Bangladesh as the previous speaker had mentioned. China will continue its effort toward encircling India. So whether it is in political, diplomatic, infrastructure-wise, militarily, from all sides. Even now also, Bangladesh imports 70 to 80% of its military equipment are of Chinese origin. It's compared with Pakistanis. So there, in any case, it is there. Now, what the recent news which we have come to know about this Lalmani Hat airbase being constructed, it's a huge concern to us, because they don't have to be physically present there. But what we have seen in the Op Sindoor and the response of Pakistan and how Chinese have helped them in providing visibility by use of their satellite and the other network and all, guiding their weapon system and all these have been done being at the background. Nowadays, the paradigm of warfare has changed. You don't have to put boots on ground. You can be on background and still help a particular armed forces with the way the operation has progressed. So that is a huge cause of concern for us because of the vulnerability of the Siliguri corridor.
Right. Ambassador Ganguly, can you hear me? Okay. Now let me go to Sourabh then. Sourabh, what is the sense you're getting? Now how are the Bengalis, how are the Bangladeshis able to forget what happened in 1971? Up to 2 million Bengalis were butchered by the Pakistani army, and an estimate said that 300,000 women were maimed, raped, and tortured. Do you think it is so easy to forget and allow one of their leaders to give a clean sheet to Pakistan and stay with and have kind of a hunky-dory approach with the Pakistanis? How is it possible?
Wasbir, I'm glad that you raised this question. Now, if you look at Bangladesh for the past, say, 20 years, there is a concerted effort to push down this Bengali identity and replace it with a religious identity. Now, as long as this Bengali identity was the dominant identity, in fact, Bangladesh's creation was out of assertion of this Bengali identity. Said that even if the two, Bangladesh and Pakistan, were of same religion, since they were culturally so different, they couldn't stay together. Now that narrative has been diluted very considerably in Bangladesh as well as in India. In both sides of the border, it is the religious identity which has come in forefront. Now, in Bangladesh, we have seen the emergence of this Ansarullah Bangla team and JMB and all these various groups, emergence of these various groups with their own own agenda, especially groups like Tehreek and others who are infiltrating into the education system, the madrasas, the policy-making bodies, construction of syllabus. All these things have been infiltrated by this right-wing group. On the Indian side also, we have seen emergence of issues like NRC and CAA and very communally polarized political narrative, which are directed to India's domestic audience. Now, this has kind of pushed back the pan-Bengali nationalist identity. And,
so you were Sourabh, you were saying basically that Bengali identity has been diluted in Bangladesh, and that is the reason why an interim unelected leader like Muhammad Yunus is able to hobnob with the Pakistanis without bothering about the reaction on the ground. We will elaborate on that a little later. Let me once again go to Dr. Swaran Singh. I have a question for both General as well as Ivan, but I'll come to that slightly later. Dr. Swaran Singh, now I want to know, in this kind of a situation, I was asking the ambassador this question: what should be India's response? Are we going to brazen it out? Are we going to just hang around, do nothing, wait for this interim government to end, elections to be held? But do you think by that time it is going to be too late?
First of all, I think it's not India's way to brazen it out or completely be mute spectator. If you notice, since August last year, there have been several formal, direct conversations at various levels, including with Muhammad Yunus. And I think the effort that India has made, and I think India will make, is to ensure that India is able to nudge Dr. Yunus to early elections, and also make sure that it can communicate to him that no policy decisions, particularly no fundamental changes in equations and policies, can be made until a elected government is brought back to Dhaka. Otherwise, minimalist approach of engaging him and his team of advisors will continue. But this has to be conveyed that India would prefer that serious decision making and serious initiatives can happen between India and Bangladesh only once a formally elected government with a popular mandate is brought back to power, and also keep making him kind of aware of what these temptations or sort of euphoria led kind of reactions in building partnerships with Pakistan, for example, visa on arrival, direct shipping, direct airlines, trade, and so on,
Yeah.
that these short-term initiatives completely undermine their own history, and in that sense are not going to be finally acceptable to the popular sort of mandate once elections are held. So I think a very subtle way of indirectly and constantly nudging Dr. Yunus to stay on course and do what is expected of him as interim chief advisor to make sure the stability is brought back, elections are held, and then let policy decisions be made by the elected government. But of course, meanwhile, India will have to stay very alert to what is happening. For example, you mentioned Lal Monir Khat air base becoming a kind of a area of conversation. Though it's not a security concern. You see, India's Trishakti Corps are right now in Siliguri.
Yes.
Hashimara has Rafale squadron. So it's not a security threat, even if Chinese find a foothold in Lal Monir Khat area. It will be foolhardy of them to invest in that area, but it can be an irritant. It can be an intelligence gathering kind of an effort. So that kind of nuisance can happen during this period of Mohammad Yunus trying to find legitimacy in external partnership with China and Pakistan. But I'm very confident these are not sustainable, because once the popular mandate comes, focus shifts to long-term developmental kind of policies. India will be seen as a natural partner. India has been a very strong partner for last 25 years, 15 years of continuous Sheikh Hasina's leadership.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, I think the shorter this nuisance continues, the better for everybody.
Right.
But I think it's a personal ambitions of Dr. Yunus to stay in power, which is kind of propitiating the groundswell of radical Chhatra Shivir-led kind of rhetoric, which is guiding the narratives at this stage. Hopefully they will sort of go back to stability and sanity, and I think that should happen earlier than later.
I'll go for a quick 30-second break. I'm coming back. I'll go to General Kalita and Dr. Ivan Lidarev. Welcome back. This is the last round of comments. I'm running out of time. General Kalita, you know, I was reading reports in the last couple of days that Pakistan is trying to remove the Bangladesh army chief, but most of the army commanders are supporting the Bangladesh army chief. Now, these things can also happen, isn't it? Because the Pakistani ISI is working to have generals who are supportive of them, and because the Bangladesh army chief has gone against the Pakistani wishes, because he has been saying time and again that elections should be held sooner than later.
Yeah, we heard that about a month or two back, that there was some talk about efforts by the ISI-backed some of the Bangladeshi generals trying to stage a coup and remove the present chief of army staff from his position. So, but I think he has been able to handle that particular thing well, if whatever we have heard is true. But definitely they would like the Pakistan as well as ISI would want to have somebody in place who is favorable to them, or who would agree to their machinations and who would possibly toe their line. Which the present chief of army staff, like you yourself mentioned, he has been pushing even the interim caretaker government also to hold early elections. That he has made open statement. So, but these sort of things are possible.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and watch as to how whether Mohammad Yunus is whether the army chief in Bangladesh is able to nudge or able to compel Mohammad Yunus to hold elections or not. That will be something which we'll keenly watch. Final comments from you, Dr. Ivan Lidarev. How do you think that things panning out post-Operation Sindoor? Do you think Pakistan and China will, at the end of the day, succeed in arm twisting the interim regime in Bangladesh, which is having a financial crunch, as besides, of course, political instability? There may be a time when all the Islamist elements they might turn out to be a Frankenstein's monster, which Mohammad Yunus may not be able to handle.
Yes, there is always the danger that Islamists will come to power. I think at this point they won't be able to arm with Bangladesh, simply put, because they are not in such a strong position. But on the long run, one can imagine such a situation. However, I think that everything, as I said, is in an interim state. So we'll see probably next year how things go. Of course, if the Islamists come to power, probably Bangladesh will become substantially more anti-India than now. However, I also think that Bangladesh will sink into an extremely difficult position. So even if they come to power, I'm not sure that they'll stay in power for long.
Right. Sourabh Sen, final comments from you. How do you think the things pan out in the next few weeks? And I'll then come to Swaran Singh.
I just wanted to point one thing out is that Prime Minister Modi has clearly stated India's new doctrine, post-Sindhu doctrine. Now, where a key point is response to terrorism. Now, if that holds true on the eastern side as well, if it holds true on the western side of the border, it holds true on the eastern side as well. Now, that doctrine without a nuclear deterrence means different kind of possibilities for Bangladesh, which
right.
I think is a very key point here. And secondly, weaponization of rivers. There's a India-Bangladesh river agreement on Ganges water. So there are, again, similar situations on either side of the border, but the outcomes under these new doctrines are likely to be very different. So let's hope that whatever emerges in future will keep these calculus in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sourabh. Final comments from you, Dr. Swaran Singh, if he's there. Dr. Swaran, okay, so I've come to the end of this discussion. Time is short, absolutely. I would like to thank all my panelists, Ambassador Riva Ganguly, Dr. Ivan Lidarev, Lieutenant General R.P. Kalita, Dr. Swaran Singh, Sourabh Sen. Thank you very much for joining this discussion, and thanks to the viewers for watching the show.